So I do want to get into this big Washington Post story that came out on Wednesday that highlighted there's just the absolute horrific culture that has been developed in Washington in the NFL team led under the ownership of Daniel Snyder. As the Washington Post talked to 15 former employees, all females, and they all detailed their sexual harassment while employed as a member of Washington. And this lasts from 2006 to 2019, so all during owner Daniel Snyder's tenure. And obviously, the Redskins have been in the news because of the name. The Redskins is no more because Daniel Snyder now has this sexual harassment culture that has come to the surface and has been made public. So really, for the most part, Washington's NFL franchise has been a black eye on the NFL for years now, but especially of late. And to me, looking at this entire situation, looking at the landscape of the league, the NFL should absolutely force Dan Snyder to sell the team. Absolutely should force him. Doesn't matter that, with these sexual harassment allegations, none were directly tied to Dan Snyder, right? All of these females that talked, none of them pinned it directly on him. He made any unwanted advances. He made any of these disgusting comments towards these women and all the people he hired in his inner circle. But that's still not enough for me to justify him keeping the team. Think about it. Looking at it from the NFL's perspective, looking at it from Roger Goodell and the other 31 owners, what has Daniel Snyder done as owner of the Redskins now for 2 decades to be allowed to keep the team? Roger Goodell, as commissioner, has the power to push for a vote to remove an owner and force them to sell. This has never happened before. He's never had to push for a vote and have the owners vote to basically kick out an owner and strip him of his team. Now, if Roger Goodell was to push for a vote, what would need to happen is 3/4 of the owners, or essentially 24 of the 32 owners, would have to vote yes to push Daniel Snyder out. So I'll ask the question, what has he done to justify him keeping the team? Why should the NFL continue to back Daniel Snyder, continue to vouch for him, and basically keep giving him second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances? Because he's done nothing for them in a positive. Let's go through Daniel Snyder's tenure as owner overall when he took over the Redskins back in 1999. A lot of on-field issues, a lot of off-field issues. Let's start with the off-field issues first. He was the first owner, and the Redskins were the first team to charge fans to go to and attend training camp during the summer. Doesn't sound like a big deal. But when you think about it this way, with the Redskins being a national fan base, with the Redskins being a very popular team, a lot of people want to go to the games. And now, because of that demand, ticket prices increased, and they priced out a lot of average fans that couldn't make it to the games. So now, going to training camp, watching the team practice in the summertime was the only way a lot of these fans could actually get close to the team and watch their favorite team play. Sure, as a practice, sure, maybe as a scrimmage, but is their only chance to really get close to the team? Because once the fall came, they would just watch it on TV. They couldn't afford to go to a game. Now, obviously, you alienate some of the fans, and you make it harder for those fans whose only opportunity maybe was to watch the team, was to be around the team, was at training camp. Makes it a little harder to do so. When 9/11, unfortunately, tragically happened, the Redskins sold 9/11 themed Pentagon hats, 9/11 themed hats, and of course, they did so for profit. And then added a security charge to the tickets that, according to anyone, no one really had any idea what there was for. No one really knew what this extra charge went to. No one really knew what the cause of the extra charge was. And it seemed to be, under the guise of security, but no one really knew. So, again, you're profiting off of a national tragedy, unfortunately. Let's go even further. This is the owner who sued his own season ticket holders during a recession. The Redskins had a plan where you can have like a 10-year season ticket package. And when the recession hit in 2007, 2008, a lot of those fans couldn't make do. They asked for a year off or 2 year off, to delay payments until the economy came back, until their jobs, maybe if they were laid off, they were rehired, or until their salary returned to normal. They asked for a year or two break from this, multi-year commitment for season tickets. And Daniel Snyder said, no, you can't pay? Okay, we're going to sue you. And he sued his own season ticket holders to get the money back that he was owed during a recession. Not a good look. And finally, one of the most damning, and now, as we know, will finally change, but up until this point, up until about 2 weeks ago, vowed to never, ever, ever, never in all caps, change the name of the team, despite the fact that it was a racial slur, it was offensive to many, and a lot of different groups advocated for the changing of the nickname, changing of the logo. It never happened until, again, financial sponsors came and basically forced the issue and took away money if the name wasn't changed. Such are some of the off-field issues that have brought down the Washington club and brought down the NFL because of what Dan Snyder has done. Let's look at it on the field, right? Because the NFL, as we know, is the ultimate win business. If you win, everything else can be looked upon. If you're a player, you have off-field issues. Well, if you're good on the field, if you produce on Sundays, we'll deal with the distractions. We'll deal with the off-the-field issues. If you're an owner or coach, same thing. We will put up with a lot of nonsense. We will put up with a lot of garbage. If on Sundays you are winning games, you're winning championships, you're winning divisions, and you're going to the playoffs. So sure, a lot of these off-field issues, but guess what? I'm sure, because he's been in charge for this long, the product on the field has to justify the off-field issues. But that's not the case. 21 seasons now, as owner, again, going back to 1999, Washington has had 6 winning seasons out of 21. 6 winning seasons out of 21. Their last playoff win, go back to the 2005 season, they won a wild card game over the Buccaneers, 17-10. So we haven't had a playoff win in 15 years. We've had a total of 6 winning seasons in 21 years. And the most damning, the most alarming, and the biggest reason why the NFL owners and Roger Goodell should seriously look into forcing Daniel Snyder out as owner of Washington is because guess what? The money is hurting. Apathy from fans is real. It is setting in. And Redskins fans are tuning out, not going to games, and basically have stopped caring, which is the most dangerous thing. If you're the NFL, if you're an owner of a team, the most dangerous thing you can do is turn your fan base off so much that they stop caring. You can get them angry. You can get them upset. You can get them frustrated. That's okay because guess what? That means they still care. They'll still watch the games. They'll still pay for parking. They'll still pay for tickets. They'll still pay for merchandise. And they still are invested in the team. When apathy sets in, when these fans don't care anymore, or they are so frustrated that their best option, their only option, is to just basically give up the team and stop caring, that's when you're in big trouble. Now, according to Forbes, the Redskins have seen a 31% drop in average attendance over the past decade. 10% higher than the next closest team, which is the Bengals. So think about that. Over the last decade, their average attendance has dropped 30%. Back in 2018, Washington was the only team to fail to fill 3/4 of the stadium once. So 8 home games, now one time was 3/4 of their stadium filled. The only team to do so. Think about that. The Jaguars did it. The Raiders did it. Plenty of teams that we see struggle. The Chargers did it. Despite the fact there was other fans, they still did it. So a lot of these teams that struggle to get a foothold in the marketplace, a lot of teams that struggle just to win and that way drive fans away, Washington was the only team in 2018 to fail to fill up 3/4 of the stadium for just one game. And not to mention, while other teams are expanding their capacity, while other teams are expanding the stadiums, the Redskins are doing the opposite. FedEx Field is shrinking. As we know, when Daniel Snyder bought the team, they had 91,000 seats put in FedEx Field. Over that 20 years, it shrunk almost 10,000 to 82,000. So instead of expanding the brand, instead of filling more seats, they are shrinking capacity and have cut down almost 10,000 seats because fans aren't going to the games. They don't want it to make it look worse than it really is on TV. So in that 20-year tenure, 21-year tenure of Daniel Snyder owning the team, they've reduced capacity, not expanded it. Not to mention the TV ratings have fallen. So fans have just tuned out. They are so frustrated, they are literally giving up and not watching the team anymore. Which, you know what that means? Less money, which really, when it hurts the bottom line, that's what really gets owners' attention. That's what gets Roger Goodell's attention. So I ask you, we talk about the off-field issues, we talk about the on-field issues, and more importantly, the apathy that's setting in from fans. What has he done to justify the team? Why should Roger Goodell, or any of the other 31 owners, back Daniel Snyder up? Want him to stay around and want him to be one of the 32 owners of an NFL franchise? Because guess what? He has done nothing to elevate the brand. And we always hear about protecting the shield, right? That is Roger Goodell's main goal as commissioner, protect the shield. Well, Daniel Snyder's only caused the league more headaches. He's driven fans away, not brought them in. And he's done anything but protect the shield. At what point do you just cut bait? At what point do you say enough is enough? He's bringing nothing to the table. If anything, he's only making our problems worse. The biggest motivation, the biggest factor in owning a team is money. How can we get as much money as possible? And the Redskins are struggling to do that because their fans have just tuned out. So you got to think, if Daniel Snyder's forced out, if the owners vote to kick Daniel Snyder out, strip him of the Washington team, and bring a new owner in, don't forget, there is a national fan base for this team. There is storied history with this team. They are one of the original teams back in 1932. They've been around a very long time. So it's an iconic franchise that would be way better off with a competent owner that brings fans in instead of driving them away, unifies fans instead of dividing them, and brings some respect to the name. But you look at being an owner, it's not a right to own a team. It's a privilege. If you can't live up to that privilege, if you can't pull your own weight, I don't understand why owners don't do this more. Why not vote someone out that's not doing their job or bringing you down or bringing the league down? The NFL is in the money-making business. And right now, the Redskins, because of their name, that's offensive by many, because of the latest story about the sexual harassment throughout the building by many staffers, because the other incompetence on the field, off the field, and because Daniel Snyder has done the rare job as a sports owner where he has literally turned fans off. He's driven them away. Because of all this, I don't understand why any owner would still want him to be a part of their club. I don't see it. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you can help me out. But I'm curious your thoughts. Should Daniel Snyder be forced to sell Washington? Should the NFL owners get together, get a vote, and vote him out, strip him of the team, and bring a new owner in? We saw what happened, although it was a little different situation in Carolina with Jerry Richardson. He had allegations of a hostile work environment coming against him, some direct allegations towards him. He decides to sell the team. David Tepper buys it. And now a new wave is coming in Carolina. A rich man has bought the team. David Tepper so far seems like a new mind. He has the best intentions of the NFL set first. And so far, at least, won't bring any drama or won't bring the NFL down. I think the same thing could happen in Washington. I think the team could go for a massive haul. I think whoever comes in and owns the team next will elevate the franchise. Because all Daniel Snyder has done is tore it down. He has hurt a nationally recognized, a national fan base, and he has really dragged the Washington team through the mud. So if I'm any owner, if I'm the owner of the Colts, if I'm the owner of the Chargers, if I'm the owner of the Bears, I am voting and I am imploring Roger Goodell to implement a vote, and I am voting to kick Daniel Snyder out of the NFL. So let's get your thoughts. Should Daniel Snyder be forced to sell the team? The latest Washington Post story that dropped on Wednesday detailed sexual harassment against 15 former female employees, none of which, again, directed any direct allegations towards Daniel Snyder, but it was just more of a culture that he's built there. A lot of his people in the inner circle were the ones doing the harassment. To me, it's just enough. The story itself isn't to the point where he should sell, but you look at the summation, the 2-decade run that he's had as owner of Washington. To me, it doesn't add up as to why he's still allowed to own the team. So let's get your thoughts. Should Daniel Snyder be forced to sell? Should the owners of the NFL strip Daniel Snyder of his team, kick him out, and bring someone else in? Because it's just been an absolute mess down there in the nation's capital. Nothing has gone right in the 2 decades that he's been owner. And for me, it's time for the NFL just to save their own brand, save their own ass. Get rid of a headache, cut bait. So if I was an owner, I would definitely force Daniel Snyder out. I'd want him to be gone